The billionaire, Alexander Drake, was the sort of man who always seemed untouchable. Suave, intimidating, impeccably dressed, he moved through the world with the confidence of someone who had everything: money, influence, charm, and the kind of arrogance that made people both admire and fear him. He was a man who believed problems could be solved with a flick of the wrist, a few signatures, or the right phone call. Before we go on, I would like to kindly ask that you please subscribe to the channel, like the video and leave a nice comment. It would mean so much to me. Yet, for all his wealth, he was stubbornly reckless. He believed danger was for other people. Security protocols? Overrated. Common sense? Optional. It wasn't that Alexander disliked rules, he simply believed rules existed to be bent or broken, preferably with style. Enter Lena, the maid. Hired initially for her discretion, efficiency, and quiet professionalism, Lena had quickly realized that her employer's charisma often veiled a kind of reckless oblivion. She observed him, studied his habits, and discovered patterns no one else could see. Alexander's bravado, she realized, often invited trouble. It all came to a head on a Tuesday. Alexander had decided, without consulting anyone, that he needed to inspect one of his luxury yachts at the private marina. It was midday, the sun bright, the air crisp, and the world perfectly ordinary, except that Alexander, as usual, had ignored warnings about maintenance hazards. Lena had followed reluctantly. She wasn't supposed to, of course. She was the maid, after all, not the executive assistant or the risk assessor. But something in her gut, that sharp instinct honed from years of observing human folly, insisted she go. "Alexander," she said, striding up to him as he leaned dangerously over the yacht's railing, "you really shouldn't." "Lena, relax. I know what I'm doing," he interrupted, dismissing her with a wave. "I've handled risk my entire life. Trust me." Lena rolled her eyes. "Trust you? I've seen how you handle a knife in the kitchen. Trust isn't really the word I'd use." He chuckled, brushing her off. And that's when it happened. A loud snap echoed across the deck. One of the ropes Alexander had been leaning on gave way. He toppled sideways, hands flailing, eyes wide in sheer panic. For a man who had spent decades controlling every situation, this moment stripped him of dignity and balance in an instant. "Alexander!" Lena screamed, running toward him. Instinct took over. She lunged, her arms wrapping around his torso as he plunged toward the water. In the chaos, her fist connected sharply with his chest, not in anger, but to stabilize him, to redirect his falling weight. He gasped, choking, sputtering, entirely unprepared for the fact that the maid he had barely noticed as a human being capable of independent thought had just saved his life. They hit the deck hard, both gasping for air. For a long moment, neither spoke. Lena's heart pounded like a drum, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Alexander's eyes were wide, not with anger or embarrassment, but with a rare, sudden respect, and something else, something dangerous and unpredictable. You just," he managed to say, voice hoarse. "You just punched me?" "I saved your life," Lena said, panting. "It's technically a heroic punch." Alexander laughed, a short, startled sound, more disbelief than amusement. "A heroic punch, for my maid?" "Yes," she said, straightening. "Consider it part of my job description now. Life-saving duties included." Alexander shook his head, trying to regain composure, though his chest still throbbed where Lena had struck him. And that's when he noticed something he hadn't before: the fire in her eyes, the calm precision of her movements, the sheer unpredictability of her presence. For the first time in decades, Alexander felt unsettled. Unsettled, yes, but intrigued. After the incident on the yacht, Alexander's world felt off. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but Lena had disrupted the equilibrium he thought he controlled so well. Every time he looked at her, he saw something new: confidence, focus, and a rare spark of daring that made him simultaneously frustrated and fascinated. He tried to dismiss it. He told himself it was just gratitude, or perhaps embarrassment at being saved by someone he had considered just a maid. But the more he saw her in action, organizing his home, preparing meals with precision, even handling guests with poise, the more he realized something fundamental had changed. Lena wasn't just competent, she was magnetic. For her part, Lena treated him with the same professionalism as before, but now with a subtle edge. She knew he couldn't control everything, and she was learning just how far she could push him without breaking the rules. There was a playful energy between them, a tension that neither could ignore. One morning, Alexander tried to assert authority as usual. "Lena, I need the schedule for the upcoming board meeting," he said, waving a hand toward his sleek office. "Sure," Lena replied smoothly, placing the schedule on the desk. But then she added with a smirk, "And you might want to sit down before reviewing it. I wouldn't want you to pass out from the stress." Alexander blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me." "You know, adrenaline." Heart still throbbing from the punch incident, she teased lightly, and before he could respond she was gone, leaving him staring at her retreating back, unervingly aware of her presence. The dynamic between them continued to shift. At first it was subtle, a hand that lingered a moment too long when passing a dish, a glance that held a hint of amusement or challenge. But as days passed, the tension became undeniable. Alexander, used to commanding attention and respect, found himself on unfamiliar ground. Lena was in control in ways he hadn't expected, and it thrilled and frustrated him simultaneously. Then came the real test. One evening, a minor fire broke out in the study, caused by a faulty electrical cord. Alexander, true to form, froze in indecision, unsure how to act. Lena didn't hesitate. She grabbed a fire extinguisher, assessing the flames with precision and efficiency. Alexander watched, astounded, as she controlled the situation with a calm authority he had never seen in anyone, not in business partners, not in employees, not even in himself. When the fire was finally out, Alexander felt a strange mixture of gratitude and something else he couldn't name. You really saved the house," he said, voice unusually quiet. "Again," Lena replied, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Heroic maid duties, remember?" He laughed, but it was different this time, a laugh tinged with admiration, maybe even respect. He realized that in her, he had found someone fearless, someone who challenged him in ways no one else could. Someone who could push him, frustrate him, and, uncomfortably, intrigue him all at once. From that night onward, their relationship began to evolve. It wasn't romantic yet, not overtly, but the chemistry was undeniable. A look, a touch, or a shared joke carried weight. Alexander found himself seeking her out, needing her opinions, valuing her perspective beyond her role as a maid. Lena, meanwhile, enjoyed the subtle power she held, balancing professionalism with moments of playful provocation. And just when they began to navigate this delicate dance, real danger arrived. A break-in occurred in the early hours of the morning. Two masked intruders tried to access the billionaire's private vault. Security alarms blared, lights flashed, but Alexander, in his panic, froze. Lena didn't. She acted instinctively, tackling one intruder and striking the other with precision. Her fist connected hard enough to knock him off balance, giving Alexander the chance to pull the alarm and call security. By the time the authorities arrived, the intruders were restrained, and the house was secure. Alexander, shaken and flushed with adrenaline, realized that Lena had not just saved him, she had saved his life again. And this time he couldn't ignore the truth, she had become indispensable, not just to his household, but to him personally. The aftermath was quiet, reflective. Alexander offered his thanks, clumsy and heartfelt, trying to navigate emotions he rarely allowed himself to feel. Lena accepted them with her usual poise, but a faint, knowing smile lingered, one that suggested she understood the shift between them. Something had changed. For Alexander, the revelation was uncomfortable and exhilarating. He had always thought himself untouchable, impervious to vulnerability, immune to being saved by anyone. Lena had shattered that illusion twice, and with each incident, he found himself drawn to her more, curious, challenged, and perhaps even attracted. For Lena, the incidents affirmed her own sense of agency. She was more than a maid, she was competent, brave, and capable of altering the course of someone's life, and that realization gave her a quiet, commanding presence in the household. The morning after the break-in, the house felt unusually quiet. Sunlight streamed through the windows, bouncing off polished surfaces, and the hum of distant traffic reminded Alexander that the world outside continued, oblivious to the chaos of the night before. Alexander sat in his study, replaying every moment, the intruders, the adrenaline, the panic, and most vividly, Lena's decisive intervention. He realized something profound: Lena wasn't just brave, she was extraordinary. The thought unsettled him, but in a way that felt exciting rather than frightening. He found her in the kitchen, sipping coffee, calm and collected as if the night's events were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Her hair was slightly tousled, her uniform smudged from the struggle, but her composure was intact. Alexander watched her for a moment, realizing he had never looked at anyone this way, not business associates, not friends, not lovers. "You handled everything perfectly last night," he said, approaching her cautiously. I don't know what I would have done without you." Lena tilted her head, offering a small smile. "You might have figured something out eventually," she replied lightly, though her eyes held a knowing glint. "Maybe not gracefully, but eventually." Alexander laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Eventually isn't exactly comforting when your life is at stake," he said. He leaned against the counter, studying her. I've underestimated you." "You mean, until now?" Lena teased, but her voice lacked mockery. It was warm, teasing, human. "Yes," he admitted, and in that one word, Alexander acknowledged more than bravery or competence. He acknowledged something deeper, a shift in the balance between them, an attraction he could no longer ignore, and a respect that bordered on admiration, and maybe something else entirely. For days, a subtle dance emerged between them. Playful challenges, lingering glances, and conversations that felt dangerously personal. Alexander, who had always thrived on control, discovered he was not in command. Lena, who had long been professional and discreet, found that she enjoyed the power and connection this imbalance created. Then came the first real moment of honesty. Alexander had called her into the study under the pretense of reviewing documents. The air between them was charged, the usual banter absent. He closed the door and took a deep breath. "Lena, I need to say something," he began, voice steady but low. "You've changed things, not just last night, but in general. I can't stop thinking about you." Lena's eyes widened, a faint flush rising to her cheeks. She placed the papers she had been holding onto the desk. "You mean that punch?" she asked lightly, though the tension in her posture betrayed her. He stepped closer. "The punch saved my life, yes. But it also did something else. You've done something I didn't expect anyone could." The room was quiet except for their breathing. Alexander, always composed, found himself vulnerable in a way that exhilarated and terrified him. Lena, always cautious, realized she felt the same, drawn to someone she had never anticipated, yet incapable of denying her feelings. And then, with a mixture of hesitation and inevitability, they closed the distance. Their first real kiss was electric, a culmination of tension, adrenaline, and mutual respect. It was messy, human, and thrilling, the kind of moment that felt impossible in theory but perfect in reality. From that day forward, their relationship evolved naturally, balancing humor, tension, and genuine connection. Alexander learned to appreciate Lena not just as his maid or protector, but as an equal, someone whose bravery and intelligence challenged him and kept him grounded. Lena discovered that she could be both professional and personal, strong and vulnerable, all at once, with someone who respected her fully. The household settled into a new rhythm. Work continued, responsibilities were met, but there was a shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the bond formed in chaos. Every glance, every smile carried weight, a reminder of the night that had changed everything. Alexander and Lena's story became a testament to the unexpected ways human connection can form, through danger, trust, and courage. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was real, messy, and alive. And sometimes, that was more than enough. The sun set over the estate, casting golden light across the manicured lawns. Inside, laughter and conversation flowed freely, the previous tension replaced by warmth and companionship. Alexander caught Lena's eye across the room, a small private smile passing between them. In that quiet moment he realized, life could be unpredictable, thrilling, and even terrifying, but when someone truly had your back, even a billionaire could learn humility, courage, and maybe even love.